Hello and welcome home. So it has been a while and I'm finally back to posting. And for this episode, I would like to talk about some things I learned when I was 19, considering that this month I turned 20, the big 2-0. It is currently 3 a.m. and because I can't sleep, I'm like, you know what? It's quiet. Why not record this episode? Because I don't know when I will. I'm actually on my iPad this time because there's something wrong with my laptop that I record on. So I might just record on my iPad now. Yes. Not gonna get so much into what's going on currently since I'm just pretty stressed out about college and work and transferring since I go to my community college. So it only lasts 2 years, and this late December, I should be done in transferring to whatever university early 2026. And I kind of started the process, but I haven't even written my personal essays for the colleges that I'm trying to apply to. So I am stressed out more than you guys know with other things that's going on in the world, but let's talk about some things I learned when I was 19. And I think I may add a bonus piece of advice, I guess, since I just thought of this. But yes. So the first thing I learned when I was 19 is that not everyone will be my cup of tea. And if they are not, that it is okay to say that and move on. And the reason I say this is because I feel like it becomes difficult to make friends as time goes on, especially because in high school and somewhat a little bit in college, you are friends with people due to proximity. And so when you don't have that proximity and you're actually kind of not necessarily obligated, but you have to put more time into seeing your friends, you start to realize that the friends that you did have, the relationships that you did have, were due to proximity. And you have to now figure out how do you build fun relationships and maintain them, because I found that to be kind of difficult. And also, I have become more picky with who I befriend. And so now I consider people's political views. How do they feel about certain situations? How do they respond? How do they communicate? What is their, emotional responses to things? Things that I didn't necessarily consider when I was younger. I do feel like they did play a role, but as I gotten older, I realized that the stuff I used to deal with as a teenager, which is so funny to say, I used to say, when I was a teenager to my friends, because I'm literally 20, I was just a teenager. But some things that I used to put up with in my teens, I have grown or lost tolerance and patience for it, because the older we get, I feel like we should grow from who we used to be. And when I realize that people are not growing, it is something I can't deal with. And it's unfortunate because the people who I end up liking, I think that we're like-minded, but it only takes one situation for me to realize that we may not be compatible. And I am not one for doing multiple chances, because sometimes things are just a hard no, and that's just that. For my second point, I'm actually reading on my phone. I feel like I'm presenting to you guys. But my second point is that not everybody needs a goodbye. So the reason I say this is because sometimes I don't have fully established relationships with people. And so it's this weird feeling of like, do I express myself and how I feel if this person isn't completely 100% my friend? Because it's people who I meet who I say, oh, this is my friend, but if I'm having a hard time, can I call them? Do they show up when I want them to show up or need them to show up? And so I sometimes don't know if I really want to continue a friendship or a relationship that has just started, or I've known this person for maybe a couple months or a year, because time flies by. So someone who I met, a semester ago, we may have been talking for actually a year, but because of our, timing, it don't feel like a year. We haven't talked for a year. We probably talked maybe like once a week, And so the timing, it feels so strange because it's like, okay, yeah, I've known you for a year, but it's like, I don't feel as if I've had a connection to you for a year. It felt more like a couple weeks to a couple months because our schedulings are weird. And so with someone that I knew from high school, this goes back to being friends because of proximity. I was friends with this person since middle school, and I feel like her and I were not friends due to proximity, but I do think we were friends because we liked each other, duh. But I felt like we were more of an aid to each other. And we were there for each other because we were like both going through stuff since middle school and high school. And, she has gone to our university and she's growing and blooming and she's making her friends. And I think they align better with her than I do. And I always worry that what if I'm thinking that there's this mutual kind of breaking up, like we just go our separate ways. But instead of me thinking that we're going our separate ways, I'm just ghosting someone. And so that's why I'm like, maybe not everybody needs a goodbye. Some people are okay with just not talking and going their separate ways. I just don't know. But for this particular person, I did text her and I did say like, hey, like, I just feel like our friendship has kind of ended. But we still do say like happy birthday to each other because there's no bad blood or anything. I just think we have gone our separate ways, but I just don't know how to let things go without there being any miscommunication or misunderstanding. But she is always free to text me. I still have her number. But for those who I may not be as close to and may have not been friends with since like middle school, I'm like, how do I do this? But I think I kind of just let it be. I kind of let it go. Like if we don't talk for a certain amount of time, I just make the assumption that we are both going our separate ways so that not everybody necessarily needs a goodbye. So the third lesson I learned is that just because you explain it doesn't mean they will understand it. And this has been such a hard lesson for me to learn, and I'm still constantly learning. And I say this because this goes back to me mentioning that when I befriend someone, I think that we are like-minded, meaning that we are on the same wavelength and we think in similar ways. But I've come to realize that I can explain to someone that, hey, I don't like pancakes. And someone will be like, but why? Pancakes are really good and pancakes are just really tasty and I like eating it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I can be like, yeah, but pancakes actually upset my stomach. And so I can only have pancakes for, maybe once in a while or maybe, occasionally. And even though I explained that pancakes, this is all hypothetical, guys, but even though I explained that pancakes sometimes upset my stomach and I can't eat it, often, someone will still say, well, I think it'd be okay to eat it every day. I eat it every day and I'm fine with it. I can accept eating pancakes every day, but why can't you, And if you take that mentality and you put it into a deeper situation, it becomes very frustrating because I am not secretive about my struggles because I talk a lot and I feel like that's a problem, but I don't really consider myself a closed book. If anything, I'm more of an open book. So when I share personal information about myself with people, I think that we're like-minded, but then I realize, oh, you do not understand. Okay. And I've been preached to a lot that you must communicate to people, and through communication, that it was suggest that through communication that someone will understand. But comprehension also needs to be there, and people have to be willing to understand and learn. And so there has been plenty of times where I have gone into disagreements and arguments with people because I have explained to them my side, my feelings, my opinions, and they are not open enough, flexible enough to understand that what I'm saying is that and it's not going to be changed. And so I have cut off people because of it, because when something is very deep to me and meaningful to me and you don't have the capacity to accept that that is what it is and you're trying to debate me on my feelings, I have no reason to speak to you anymore. I don't think it's fair to try to prove myself to you or my opinions or views when I don't do that to you. And it's something I'm still learning because it makes you not want to talk about your problems. It makes you not want to state how you feel because what's the point of explaining if the person isn't going to understand it? But I always take that chance to explain how I feel to people. And if they respond how they respond, I do get a bit upset that I even took the time to explain it. But on the other hand, it's like, well, I know that I did what I could do, and I articulate myself well enough that misunderstandings shouldn't happen, but I know they do. So I try to be as clear as possible, but some people, they just don't care. And it's funny because, as you guys can't see me, but I have like a paragraph for like each bullet point or lesson I've learned, but I'm not reading the paragraph. But I think that's okay. Hopefully I am saying all that I want to say. Okay, number 4. The same way that people are unapologetically themselves to you, you should be unapologetically yourself to them. So I say this because I won't paint myself as a goody two shoes. I can be a little evil, I will admit. But I think that there are some people who are okay with mistreating you, belittling you, harming you, and making you just feel bad. And if people are okay with doing that without a second thought, then it is okay to respond how you would like to respond. And usually my way of responding to conflict that won't have any type of resolution is by ghosting people or blocking them. I don't have the energy to go back and forth. And you guys don't know this, but I actually become very aggressive to the point where I want to like fight. That's actually why I wrestled, because it was a good outlet. It was a healthy outlet for me to, kind of be physically involved with people, but also in a safe and controlled environment. But I don't have that anymore. I'm trying to get back to it, but gyms are expensive and I do not make enough money to be paying for those when it comes to martial arts gyms, I should say that. But yes. But yeah, so sometimes I try to be mindful that if you're my friend, that I'm not going to start blatantly disrespecting you, you know? I feel like it takes a certain level of disrespect for me to ever get to that point, and I rarely get to that point, but it's just upsetting when people are okay with misunderstanding me or people are okay with disrespecting me or hurting me, because it does take a lot for me to not be who I can be. And to understand that a bit more is like, I grew up in a very aggressive family, like just in general. So fights were not uncommon, and not really within the family, but more so just with other people. Also, like arguing, yelling, cursing and stuff. That was a common thing I saw growing up. So my environments that I were in school and at home, they have created a version of me where it's like if I'm disrespected, I will turn into something else, like a 180, 180 of my personality. And it's like, so what's up? You want to fight? Like, what you want to do? Because me personally, I don't like arguing with people. I don't. And I don't make it seem like I'm a fighter. I can't fight, guys. Like, I don't know why, but my friends made the assumption that because I did wrestling that I can fight. Guys, I cannot. Wrestling is a grappling sport. I am good with like holding people. I'm not good at striking people. But yeah, so when I'm disrespected, sometimes I just want to fight, but I can't do that. I'm an adult. You'll get charged with that. Don't fight, guys. So I block people because I know where I can go, and I don't think many people can admit that, but it's like, I be wanting to fight people. I really do, because I be angry. And when I'm angry, I want to hit stuff, because it's like, you done took the kind me for granted. You done took me being really nice and understanding and letting you talk your talk. And now I want to beat the fuck out of you. Sorry, guys. Let's see if I cut that out or not. I try to like keep a persona for some reason. I don't know why. Also, in real life, I curse a lot, but when it comes to the podcast, I try not to curse too much. Okay, I'm getting like off topic. But yes, that's what I mean by I try to be really nice, because I know the alternative. The alternative to me not venting and not talking out my problems is me wanting to fight someone. And it's like, that is no way to live life. And so I pick and choose who to give my energy to, but that's usually not often. I kind of just block people, because people are okay with being who they are, and I try not to get on myself for ghosting people or not giving people a chance, because I have unfortunately had too many situations where people were just ignorant. And if there's one type of person that is hard to argue with, it would be an ignorant one, because you just can't win against them. Moving on. Number 5. It is okay not to like someone, even if it's over something quote unquote small. And I say this because, as I mentioned previously, I have stopped being friends with people over certain things. And it's really not even the issue at hand, but it's usually the principle behind it. For example, if you steal $5 from me, the amount that you stole isn't the issue, but it's the principle. Why would you steal from me? We're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to be cool with each other. Why would you steal from me? Because stealing makes you untrustworthy? I think that's the word. Now I can't trust you with my belongings, because if you're okay with stealing from me now, then you probably have stolen from me before, and you might do it again. And just like when it comes to the things I've shared with people, and it goes back to, you can explain things and people just won't understand it. There has been times when something very personal to me I have shared with someone else, and their response to it blows me out of the water to the point where it's like, if you have this mentality of thinking, we cannot be friends. And an example is people who have this undying loyalty to family when they do not treat them well. I cannot do that. If I'm telling you that I have been hurt by a family member and you tell me, oh, but that's your mom, that's your sister, that's your cousin, that's your family, that is not what I want to hear. But it's also very invalidating to my experiences, my feelings, and the things that I've gone through. You owe no one loyalty. You owe no one time, and you owe no one patience, especially when they are harming you and they are sucking the life out of you, you know? And so that's why I try to remind myself that it's okay to not like people or to just distance myself, because as I get older, I am learning that there are certain things I used to put up with that I won't put up with now. And I'm like, am I too sensitive? Am I being too much? Am I being too picky? Will I not have friends? But I think when you have standards, when you have boundaries, I think you end up having a small group of people because only a small amount of people actually fit the standards that you have. And I don't think I'm a difficult person to befriend, but I think there are just certain mindsets that I am not okay with. And that usually is the reason why I don't last long with making new friends, because usually every friend that I've made or had were from like middle school and high school. And so that proximity allows me to learn a lot about them. But as you get older, you're learning about people on your spare time. And so you may not learn something as quickly as you would have in high school or middle school due to proximity. So something that I could have learned about somebody in maybe a couple of weeks, I'll learn about it in a couple of months because we're college students and so our schedules are different, if that makes sense. Number 6, and I think this is funny because my foot's falling asleep. Okay. I'm sitting on my bed, so I don't want to move too much because I know that's going to create, my foot hurts. I know that's going to create noise, and I'm using my iPad, as you guys know. Okay. Number 6, and the reason I find this funny is because recently I have been having some issues, and so this is a good reminder because I'll be forgetting the lessons that I have learned, unfortunately. But number 6 is try to make it work with those who really care. So the reason I put this is because I have a ghosting problem or a detachment problem. When I feel attacked, when I feel hurt, when I feel like someone's out to get me, I automatically cut them off. So that's where the whole am I too sensitive part plays in or comes into play, because sometimes I just don't like dealing with things that I feel like I shouldn't deal with, so I just cut it off. And usually 99.9%, 99.99%, I'm correct. So yeah, trust your gut, guys. But I think this lesson I learned really comes from my partner, because I have been through a lot of stuff which has deeply impacted my character and who I am. And I get very defensive about myself because I never had anybody else to protect me or defend me. And so when I start feeling like I'm in danger, I'm unsafe, someone is out to get me, someone is just disrespecting me, I just cut people off. But I realized, like, the people who truly, truly care, they aren't going to hurt me. And if they ever do, they will make those changes in order to continue the friendship or relationship that we have, while also trying to make it up to me when they may have miswronged me. And it's having stable relationships is not something that I'm used to. So that's where cutting off people comes from as well, because I, I've I've learned this recently actually, is that I did not grow up with any form of a stable relationship. One second, gotta drink some water. I feel like my voice sounds raspy or crunchy. I don't know. Anyways, but yes. Gotta breathe. Okay. I didn't grow up with any healthy, stable relationships. So going into my 20s, but also just being a teenager, I don't know how to maintain something I never had, you know? And so I've always kind of been in survival mode. I've always kind of been just waiting for someone to betray me or hurt me, that at the snap of a finger, I'll be like, fine, you're out of my life. You're done. That's it. And I feel like people have taken me for face value and really think that when I say that I can cut people off easily, it's not that I don't care when I cut someone off. I do miss the people I cut off. But it's like a part of me does not like being hurt. And I feel like I shouldn't be getting hurt by people. And I just worry that if you hurt me once and I let it slide, you may do it again. And after that point, that it's my fault. I have very conflicting feelings on friendships and relationships. So the idea of having a disagreement and working it out sounds really weird and strange. But I'm getting a bit more used to it. I'm getting a bit more used to saying, hey, I don't like this. And my friend or my partner saying, I'm sorry, and I won't do that, you know? But also, I have to learn that when I am in the wrong, it doesn't make me a bad person, and that I, my friend or my partner or anyone telling me that I have done something to them is giving me an opportunity to fix what I have perhaps messed up or made a mistake on. And I just realized that now, reflecting on it. And sometimes I just forget. I am a heavily black and white thinker, so I think in extremes, and if it's not one way, it's the other. For example, I can upset my boyfriend, and I'll think, he hates me now, we must break up. But that's not the truth. He loves me dearly, he loves me a lot, like all the time. But when I make mistakes, I get so mean, especially towards myself, because I can't fathom the thought of being wrong. I hate being wrong. I hate making mistakes. But also because of my past, the mistakes that I've made, people have made me feel like I am horrible or I'm a monster. And especially when it comes to adults, because adults, I don't think they're as patient as, I'm going to say, adolescents, because that's where some of my issues come from, actually. But moving on to number 7, give yourself grace. This is something I am having trouble with because I just feel like I should know better. And I really, really, really wish that I had the wisdom of a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old, because I would say that I am pretty self-aware, and it's like I should know better, I should do better. So when I don't, I get very upset with myself. But the reality of it is that no matter how self-aware you are going to be your age. Meaning that if you are 16, you are going to do stuff that 16-year-olds do. If you're 20, you're going to do things that 20-year-olds do. It is very normal to be self-aware and to be well at dealing with situations while also making mistakes, because this is literally our first time living and probably our only time. I don't know. Let's not get into that. Maybe there'll be an episode. Maybe there'll be an episode, because I really do wonder if there's like multiple realities out there or something, or like are reincarnated. If I'm reincarnated, I think I might want to be a frog because of Princess and the Frog. I don't know. Anyways, that's so random. But I tried to give myself grace because I am continuously growing, but I don't realize it until something comes about and I realize that the way I would have responded to that situation in the past, I am not now. And this kind of goes to my not second point, but my 8th point of I am beating the odds. So with giving myself grace, I realized that all of the things that could have stopped me from becoming who I am or changed my life for the worse, they did not, because I prevailed. And these are some things in which or how I am beating the odds. So first, I beat teen pregnancy, which is pretty cool. I am the first generation to go to college and will eventually finish it. I am in a loving, understanding, and safe relationship. I am actively trying to prevent the same mistakes that my parents have made and are making. I take my mental health and well-being seriously. I am breaking those generational curses. I am not held back by blood nor feel obligated to stay with people who do not align with me. This is funny. I have a good credit score. Clock that T. Let me stop. I have a good credit score. I'm saving money. I have a plan for myself. Sometimes I've heard this quote a lot, so I don't know who said it first. But sometimes the reason why it seems like you're not progressing is because you are always leveling up your standards. So, for example, when I used to wrestle in high school, I cannot do push-ups at all. But I tried to do 10 push-ups every night, or I tried to do 5 push-ups a night. I couldn't do one, but the next day I was, and then I was able to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to the point where I was able to do 10. I think the max push-ups I can do if I really try is like 15 or 20. I don't know, guys. Don't quote me on that because I don't work out right now. But there was a time when I could not do 10 push-ups. There was a time when I couldn't do 5 push-ups. But once I got to that point of being able to do 10 push-ups, I started getting on myself like, oh my gosh, I need to be better. I need to be better. But it's like, you have made progress. There's not many people that can do push-ups, surprisingly. The things that you think are so ordinary and so mundane and so boring and not cool, you are really doing it. You really are. And I think that was just a good example, because when you start out, you're at the bottom, so you can only go up, And I realized like my upbringing, I could have been a totally different person, and that is the reality of it. But I chose to not be that way. I could be a product of my environment, and I will arguably say that I somewhat am. But it's like, if you look at me and you look at my family, you will be like, how did you come from, how did you, what? You know, there's some other stuff that I mentioned, but I think I did that well. Yeah. All right. And number 9, it's okay to change and feel uncomfortable with that change. Hopefully, you guys cannot hear my stomach. Anyways, change is uncomfortable. It is really uncomfortable. I don't like change, and it scares me. But a lot of advice that I've been hearing is that you cannot do the same thing expecting a different outcome. And a lot of times when I hear advice, I'm like, oh, shut up, like, whatever, I don't care. But it's only because it is very true, at least when it comes to this piece of advice, I say that I want to feel better, but as you guys can see, it is now 4:16 a.m. I have to be up at 9 in the morning for school. Actually, 8. No, yeah, 9. Sorry. I have to be up at 9 in the morning. So that leaves me with about, I think, I'm going to say about 5 hours, guys. I like doing mental math, but if I'm wrong, don't tell me. Okay. But I say I want to feel better and be energized, but I go to sleep late. I wake up late sometimes when I can. I don't go outside, but I hate going outside. I am on social media for long amounts of time. I don't eat well. I don't do the things that would help me feel better. But also, it is a struggle. I actually was looking at, you know, meals to eat because I don't really cook. And so it's a little overwhelming when I'm searching up stuff and people typically do things by scratch and it's like, guys, I don't think that's for me. So I try to find recipes that are easy to do. And even that sometimes I mess up on. I tried to make a baked potato, but I think I put too much salt and then the cheese I used wasn't really good. But I just don't want to waste food. That's actually why I don't try many foods. It's because food is expensive and what happens when you don't like it, you know? But it is fun, at least I can say that I made a baked potato and I kind of failed at it. I made this type of salad and it was so nasty, but I made it. I took 2 bites and I'm like, this is okay. This is okay. No, it's not. And I threw it out. But yeah, change is very uncomfortable, but I think what's worse than change is staying the same. And I don't want to stay the same, but I also have to realize that I become so obsessed with being this better version of myself that sometimes that in itself is preventing me from actually realizing my growth. And it's such a difficult thing to deal with. And I don't feel like I hear people talk about that enough. I am so obsessed with self growth because I just want to be perfect. I just want to quote unquote fix myself. And I'm not sure what to say. Change is just weird and it's uncomfortable as hell. And I know I said that already, but it's really like going somewhere and you feel almost naked. You don't have the tools that you may need completely to do the task because it's something you're new to. But you're going to do it. And along the way, you're going to gain those skills. You're going to gain the tools that you need in order to succeed. But when I do something different for the first time, like just expressing how I feel to my boyfriend, I feel so vulnerable because when you are changing, you are putting yourself in a new space, a new environment where you do not know what the outcome will be. And when you do that, it is very scary because you really are putting yourself out there. And this can be for anything. You could be interviewing for a job that you never thought you would ever want, or you're asking this person out, and you don't know how it's going to go, or you decide to finally put your foot down and say no to a family relative. And those are the little but major steps in changing. And even though it's scary, I'll say that those little changes that I've made, just wrestling my senior year of high school as a girl, that is a big change. But I think I don't regret it at all. I've done everything that I wanted to do so far, and I will continue to do all the things that I want to do to the best of my ability. But if you're ever worried about change, just think of where you came from, you know? And I always think, even though I was scared, even though I was nervous, and I was anxious to the sky, I still did it, and I had no regrets in my heart. And people will say, regret is a strong feeling. It really is. It really is. And so I'm glad that I have no regret in my heart when it relates to wrestling and the extracurriculars I did in high school, because sometimes it's difficult to do the things that you love to do when you're trying to do everything else in the world. I'll say that. And that is the 9 things I have learned in my teenage years. And a bonus lesson I learned, because I'm realizing it as I'm doing this, is that you do not have to be perfect to give advice. And I say this because when I watch people's content that's similar to mine, I have this idea or perception that they are perfect, that they don't struggle, even though their whole content is based on making mistakes and being human and learning and growing. But I think that, how can I give advice if I'm not always this something? For example, how can I give advice on communication when I struggle with communicating? How dare me? How dare I, But I realized that I think that willingness to change, the flexibility and openness to change, I think it's more than enough for someone to be able to give advice to other people. But also, you don't have to be perfect or continuously something to be able to help another person. I always get self-conscious about when I say things or do things, because it's like, who are you to say this, or who are you to do that? How can you start this podcast and say these things, but in reality, you're not living that way? And it's not because I'm not. It's just that I think that when I learn something, that I'm supposed to remember it, and I'm always supposed to follow that. But there has been times when I have fallen back, or I've taken a few steps back, or I've reverted to being or doing something. But I think that's just human nature. Sometimes I get very hard on myself because I think I always have these perceptions of thoughts, opinions, and ideas, and when they don't align with reality, I have difficulty understanding why that is. So I can tell you guys right now, explaining something to someone doesn't mean they'll understand it. And it's important to communicate. But there has been plenty of times, even now in my relationship, where I would not want to talk to my partner. And it's not because he doesn't understand me. And it's not because he doesn't listen. He's like the best person ever, like my favorite person in the world, and I love him so much. And I'm glad that I have him in my life. I feel like if I keep talking about him, I'm going to cry. I love this guy so much. But I could say that communication is important and not communicate because sometimes I just be having my inner issues and I need moments to myself before I can go to someone else and tell them that I need help or that I'm suffering or that I'm going through it. You know? I hope that made sense. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I will see you some other time.